Yes, nice to see you. How are you doing?
It's great to see you as well, Felon. Thank you for having me.
I last saw you in Las Vegas. It's a great pleasure to welcome you, and you have the floor.
All right, great. Thank you. Well, it's sunny Trenton, not quite Vegas, so but we're all virtual. I'm going to try to get the slideshow to populate. Okay, I think we're good there.
That's
Great. Well, first, if you don't mind, I'd love to make a couple quick comments. One, I thought that last panel was fantastic. I was able to watch the last 10 or 15 minutes there, and the thoughts they shared really do hit the nail on the head, I think, with regards to the role of the CISO and then some of the other pieces that we're dealing with from a broader security perspective. And then the other comment I wanted to make is James brought up KISS, and it was much better than the version that I learned in military school, which was keep it simple, stupid. So that's keep it simple and short. I think I like that a little bit better and probably more applicable in today's workplace. So Phelim, again, thank you for having me. I do truly appreciate it. It's an honor to speak to this group. I really was looking through the agenda and then looking through a lot of the participants, and it is quite the group, and it's a credit to you and the team for pulling it together. And certainly in this time of what we're dealing with, whether it be COVID or unrest or all the other issues that are happening throughout our world and certainly the country here in the U.S. So a couple quick points on us, New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. We're the Homeland Security Department of the state of New Jersey. It was created after 9/11, and we're responsible for conducting counterterrorism, counterintelligence, cybersecurity, and emergency preparedness. There's a slide in a minute that I'll kind of blow through, but I just wanted to set the table for everyone. We have this all-encompassing security responsibility to include critical infrastructure. I should have mentioned that as well, as far as what our day-to-day responsibilities are. And I've been the director for about 3 years. I was nominated under the last governor. The current governor Murphy kept me on. And so I've been in the role for quite some time. Spent a lot of time at CIA, not the Culinary Institute of America, the other one, doing protection. So I did a lot of protective operations, and I finished up my career after getting my MBA in a organizational strategy executive role that dived heavily into data analytics and some of the cyber platforms and protection that we were doing at the agency. And then that moved me into my role here again 3 years ago. So just to set the table, that's what our agency is responsible for. A really interesting point on that, again, before I dive into the slides, is we're the only state agency, the State Homeland Security Agency, that the CISO actually reports to the Homeland Security Director, so me. So our state CISO, Mike Garrity, who many of you probably know, robust private sector background, worked at NICMAC for a long time as their CIO as well. So really robust platform, but we're the first and only state agency, a state that has that responsibility. So normally they report to an OIT, or Office of Information Technology, or a CIO, or potentially even the governor's office directly. But in New Jersey, they report to Homeland Security. So many of you wonder why I'm speaking to you, but that's the crux. We're responsible for cyber, and it's a really unique model, and it's a one that we've integrated, we think, well. Certainly a lot of room for improvement, but we wanted to outline a few of those things for you, particularly because the future. That's the title of my presentation, and it really is about the future, what we're looking for. We've been focusing on the future for several years. We really do focus day to day on making sure that we're thinking about what's next, what's over the horizon, what does the CISO of the future, what does the Homeland Security enterprise of the future look like as it relates to cybersecurity. And again, just to reiterate what those panelists and Sajid, not coincidentally from New Jersey, by the way, but Sajid mentioned that the nexus between there isn't a physical security without a cybersecurity and vice versa anymore. And I think that, again, that is spot on. And it's how we've oriented our agency at large. We've oriented it across, so there are no stovepipes. Of course, there always are stovepipes in government, so we work to break those down continually, day by day, but we're really removing them, and in many cases have removed them, and getting everything from our detectives that work on counterterrorism to our cybersecurity folks, of course, every day dealing with cybersecurity, but then to our critical infrastructure protection teams and what they do with our sectors, the Homeland Security critical infrastructure sectors. All 17 are present here in New Jersey, and I might add, in a robust way. We're one of the only states that has that presence. Truly, every single sector is not only represented, but oftentimes the worldwide, or the country and worldwide leadership of those sectors happens to reside here in New Jersey. A glaring example being the financial sector and the biopharma. that happen to be here, but really every sector has a large leadership and presence and role here in New Jersey that affects the rest of the country. So we found that we don't really have a choice but to innovate and create and adapt and move towards the future. And I think it really led us to what I'll present here coming up. So just wanted to set the table. Really looking forward to having an interaction. Ophelum always asks great questions, and we'll get moving. So again, as far as the presentation goes, it really is about the future and how it relates to cyber preparedness and within emergency preparedness. I already went over what we do. I want to add in too, as part of our state cybersecurity mandate, we created the NJCIC, the New Jersey Cybersecurity Communications Integration Cell. It's modeled after the NCIC at the federal level that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, operated by CISA at the federal level. And it is a model after the NCIC, but we've spiced it up a little bit. It's not just info sharing. It's not just threat sharing. We also do a large portion of training and operational security. So our agency has a great relationship with our Office of Information Technology, our OIT, and our Chief Technology Officer, Chris Ryan. But we actually secure the cyberspaces for the state of New Jersey. So when it comes to our IT infrastructure, the security platforms and firewalls and all the other tools that we use to protect our systems are actually based in OHSP, Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. And again, it's a unique model. It's one that works very well. There are certainly some kinks that we have to work through on even a weekly basis, but we do. And we think we do that relatively effectively. But it's worth noting that they don't just have the info sharing and clearinghouse and threat intelligence perspective. They also have incident response and true infrastructure security roles within the NJCIC. And again, I can dive in further and be happy to share with you all the contact information at the end of this so that you can check it out. There's a great website that really explains our role and how we operate and gets you all the products that you may need. And we'll make sure we get that out again. So the NJCIC itself consists of NJOHSP employees, OIT employees, New Jersey State Police, and federal partners. So FBI, Federal Homeland Security, CISA. A great example of that partnership really came to light last week in New Jersey. We actually had the state primaries the election primaries were just last Tuesday. And those were moved back because of coronavirus. They had originally been scheduled for earlier in the year, as they always are in the spring, but they've been moved back to July to give us time to respond and make sure we had the capabilities in place. And this one was a paper ballot, but there's still a lot of concerns in New Jersey about registration database that we, again, secure, and then also the pipeline to share the data, the actual election results. So we have a real-time responsibility, and we actually stood up the NJCIC as a fully operational element from 0600 Eastern Standard Time that day until after the polls closed at 8 that night and then beyond. And we were doing and having real-time intelligence sharing. So the FBI and DHS, CISA were actually co-located with us during that time, along with our state police partners. So if an investigation or response needs to happen, we can coordinate it in real time from that perspective, and give, again, that real-time information to the Secretary of State as she prosecutes her duties in managing the election system, and just making sure that there is real-time trusted data coming out regarding threats and incidents and issues that may happen. It really does become a clearinghouse, and I think that's probably one of the best examples I can give you of that coming into action. It gives us a great optic on what we do, because we do have that optic from the federal government and that relationship. So I would say, again, it's unique in that we have direct ties, including security, sensitive compartment information facilities. We have the access from a classified side, unclassified side. And so we really do try to get all that information together, digested, analyzed, and then pushed out in an unclassified format to make sure that the folks are aware. So in that case, the election partners, on an everyday perspective, it ends up being our private sector partners, largely specific to the critical infrastructure, but even down to the mom and pop business that may not understand or have an awareness of a specific cyber threat like ransomware. And I know I'm speaking in a broader term than just specific ransomware strains, et cetera, but all those different things are pumped out on a real-time basis from our NJCIC, and it becomes a really big part of what we do every single day. So I've really worked through kind of how that all works. It's a promoting awareness side. It's making sure that folks are aware, again, that mom and pop shop all the way up to a Johnson & Johnson or a Goldman Sachs or the New York Stock Exchange, all of which have a primary element of their IT system based here in New Jersey, and even headquartered in several regards here in New Jersey. And so the awareness piece becomes huge. The adoption of best practices, which I'll get into in a minute, something we've really been focused on the future side, making sure gets done, again, from everyone from the private sector to the public sector to the small and local businesses and governments, making sure everyone is in the loop on what those best practices are and how they can better secure their infrastructure that we all know is so vital to our jobs, certainly everyone on this call. In doing. And again, I highlighted the private sector partnerships and public sector partnerships and making sure that we're resilient to those cyber attacks when they come. And they do come. We've had 225 reports this year. That's obviously dramatically less. There's a lot of folks that don't like to report to a government entity, but we do get a hold of those eventually, and the numbers are staggering. Our email system is attacked 4 million times per day in New Jersey to try to, whether they be ransomware strains, DDoS, any of the classic kind of hits that we take. Our website's attacked repeatedly. So those are things that we have to deal with on an everyday basis on that Garden State network that I talked about. I'm going to check real quickly. I see a message. When it pops back up, I'll check it again, make sure I don't miss anything if somebody's asking a question. So I want to move next to the threat intelligence, give you some tangible examples. This is an example of what we receive, again, largely from the federal government and or private sector partners, and then push that out in an unclassified way and get that out to our membership list. There's a website again at the end of this, and I'd encourage you all to sign on for membership because it really is a great conduit. We have members from over 20 countries involved in that. Every single state in the United States, I believe, is a member. There's certain people from those states are members. Every industry, every sector is part of that. We're well into the tens of thousands of members of that, and I encourage you to sign on and certainly give us feedback. If we can help do better and certainly make a better product, we are always interested in those insights. But this was one on Emotet. I think a lot of you are familiar with this, that it was the Trojan bot that was out there, and that's something we wanted to get out again. An example of like this, we try to make it clear cut. A lot of folks, it's certainly helpful to have a technology background and understand what those links are and how IT infrastructure works. But it's not necessarily a showstopper either. We try to make it digestible to a CEO. Matter of fact, one of the speakers in the last segment was talking about being able to have that conversation interaction with the CEO, or actually all the speakers were talking about this in the C-suite, and making sure that the business side, the operations side is in loop with what the best practices are for security and what those threats are. So we try to make it digestible for them as well. So you could essentially take this into that C-suite and really kind of explain, whether it be a placemat like you're seeing in front of you or a more robust written analytical product. Again, we really do try to pump that out. This is one of the key parts of the future is info sharing, knocking those walls down and making sure that folks that aren't tied into cybersecurity, aren't tied into infrastructure security and infrastructure technology, making sure that they're aware of what those threats are, and then most importantly, what they can do about it. So we really believe deeply in the future being a robust info sharing environment, again, between government, private sector, both ways, and making sure that we're all in the loop together. So that's a key part of that slide. This is another side of our actual overall programmatics. We run through, and I'm going to kind of move through this quickly because I don't want to go too far on time and blow over. Phelan's a timely fellow, so I don't want to don't want to go over the timeline on this one. But with our placemat that I talked about here, our program components are detect, protect, identify, and then change, right? And those become what we feel are the key components of our forward-leaning, our future strategies and how we're going to operate our program going forward. I won't bother reading through the slide and just kind of speak over it quickly, but it really does incorporate every area that we believe is our cybersecurity platform. We back this up. I'm going to get into it on the next slide. I think it's the next slide, and talk through what we've done from an Annex perspective, best practices perspective, and rolling it out there, because we, again, with our unique model in New Jersey, have been able to use it as, quite frankly, a test bed or a sandbox in many regards, and try to adapt and move. Something I've said before on calls like this and in interviews before is I view us as an innovator, and the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, our overall agency, and then the NJ-KIC, of course. And it's not just because technology is involved, and not just because the cool catchword of cyber is involved in what we do. It's really about learning and adapting new technologies, new ways of doing, new program management, new operational models, and trying them out. And when they don't work, we operate almost like a startup. I actually said that in an interview with one of our reporters here in New Jersey, and he did a kind of a double take, and almost didn't quite believe it. But you don't think of that level of innovation, a startup with government, but that's something we've strived to do. Again, Mike Garrity, our CISO, and I have really worked to push that model forward so that when something works, we adapt it, move it, improve it, and keep it moving. When it doesn't work, we push it to the edge, and that becomes something we try to work off of, or maybe just discard altogether if it didn't work. But we're open to that culture and change execution, and that's a key part of that is one, endorsing from the top. Certainly in my agency, they have the endorsement, and our governor has been absolutely fantastic about supporting that model and pushing that model. And his background in the private sector has been fantastic. He worked in the financial sector, and it really has helped us a lot because he understands what that looks like and what that means to innovate and and ideate, and maybe some things don't work. So we really try to push through. We use this placemat, we use this model as what we operate from in our components. But believe you me, we are innovating and trying to adapt and push forward and change our culture as well as part of that. And to really continue to hammer that theme home, that becomes merging the collision, if you will, between physical and cybersecurity, and the importance of understanding both worlds in both worlds. And that's something that we really focus on pretty heavily. So the other piece, the cybersecurity best practices, we of course have this out there. Again, this is on the website, which you can take a look at later, but it really does lay that out in a little bit more digestible fashion, and for a regular citizen all the way up to a CSO, a CISO, and a CIO, really that runs the gambit of everyone, of what cybersecurity 101 would look like. What are the basics of a platform? Protecting your home, your business, your enterprise, your organization, your corporation, your government. And that's what we really focus on putting that out. But that's part of the training mission. We have folks that go out and train daily when we're not in coronavirus, and that's something we focus on as well. But we are doing that virtually as well. I think it's probably a particular good poster child for this segment when talking about the future of cybersecurity and cyber preparedness and emergency preparedness. Here we are. We're on a Zoom chat, and something that I know everyone would much prefer to have in person and really enjoy each other's company, but we can't do that. So securing systems and platforms like this become even more important than they were previously. Again, just kind of a list through all of our services. This will all be in that website that I talked about. So there's never fear. Anything you're interested in, you can click on these and be happy to continue to engage with you on that going forward. And then connecting with the NJ Kick. This is and I'll flip back. I'm going to end on this slide just so you have it, because this is the direct tie to NJ Kick, and I think that this audience would be best served having that. But then this is also our overall, and I know we can send this out to the group to make sure that you have everyone has these slides, and so you don't have to worry about taking these notes. But I'll finish with myself in this in the background here and talk about what we're trying to do. I just want to make sure that I hit one other quick point before we end. It is so important to us to make sure that we're focusing on getting the real information out there, again, to our government partners, to our private sector partners. So we've created a cybersecurity annex onto the state emergency operations plan. And that's something else that some people talk about it. There's maybe a section, maybe a couple paragraphs in an emergency operations plan. In New Jersey, we have a full annex. It's literally this thick. I should have brought it. It's a very robust document, but it really does outline how we expect our state agencies to operate in their cyber platforms as it plugs into our system. We control the security on the top side, but each individual agency, of course, has a role. Each individual person and operator of a computer system in our government has a role in securing the cyberspaces in New Jersey. And I do want to highlight that we have that out there. And much of, again, is talked in a more robust fashion on that website, so you can take a look at that. And again, we really do open books. We'd love to work with you all and hear feedback and how we can be better. So with that, I'll turn it over to Phelim. If there's any questions or you have questions, I'd be happy to talk through more. Oh, I think you're on mute, Phelim.
Yes, I'm on mute. Yes, fantastic. Well, thanks a lot for that. Keep that slide up so people can keep looking at it. Mike Godeker wants to know if the key is turning data into actionable intelligence. And I think Mike also wants to contact you afterwards. But is that really what it's all about?
In the end, I think so. So we're an intelligence agency. That's what we were created as, the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, and that's why it makes it such a unique model, because we can take that data, and we have folks from the cyber side that can put that into actionable intelligence. And yeah, I think that's a huge portion of it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's everything, but it certainly is a huge portion. It's certainly how we operate our info sharing, our environment altogether, is taking that data and digesting it down to actionable intelligence. It's great if you read a report that says there's a threat, but part of my language, what the hell do you do with it? And that becomes such a key point of how do you actually do that? Whether it be an end user at a home computer, or whether it be an end user in a major enterprise like the New York Stock Exchange, what do you do with that intelligence, and what can you do to improve your systems to secure it? I think that becomes the key as well.
Fantastic, and also in the Q&A from Mike Godeker, I guess he wants to know how can someone get involved to help your sort of cause, your directorate, what you're doing. How would a private sector act to help you?
So a couple ways, and that's a great question, and something I normally talk about, and I didn't mention it. I'll start with this one. This information here, the email addresses and websites. Please contact us there. Reach out with your, whether you have feedback, whether you want to participate, whether you want to be a member. We'll hook you up with all that information. And Fallon, make sure you have my Chief of Communications info as well. So if you want to talk one-on-one, I'm wide open to it, and we can get you that information and data out there to connect with us. But one of the key parts of what we do with the private sector, one, we're responsible for securing it from a state perspective, and that involves a federal role, et cetera, and interacting there. But it's great to be in New Jersey for a lot of reasons. I'm not just saying that as a cabinet member. It's great because we have access to incredible information. We have access to incredible talent from a cyber perspective, amongst others. So I talked about Johnson & Johnson, for example. I talked about the New York Stock Exchange, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. Our National Guard, for example, a lot of folks that work for their cyber divisions and directorates for those huge corporations. JP Morgan spends somewhere to the tune of $775 million a year on cybersecurity. We have access to those people. We bring them under the kick, and they help us on their weekend duty, for example. But then also, what am I going to tell the CISO of the New York Stock Exchange and the responsibilities that they bear? Well, I don't know. Maybe we do have some great interaction, but we certainly can take a lot from them. The best practices, the advanced cyber information. We've got some great relationships with Mandy and FireEye. We have got great relationships with folks that, for example, just one example, whatever the systems are, we take a lot as well. It's not just giving, it's information sharing. We love to hand that out like candy, but we also need to take as well. And it's been robust. It's been great. Best practices, real-time application of intelligence, threat perspectives. We'll hear maybe from a company that got a hold of, they have a huge presence in a country in Asia, for example. And they may be aware of something that's happening there before we are. So we'll get a great threat back and forth between the two, and vice versa. So that's how I'd answer that one.
That's awesome, and obviously from an outsider perspective, it's great to hear the information sharing. Often, many people say, "I give the public sector or the police some info, and I don't get anything in return. They don't know if it was useful." So better collaboration is always welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had another comment from Ellie, who says the understanding of blended threat and response is great, and hopefully the shape of the future. I think that echoes the actionable intelligence comments. But no, I think this is really good. I think cyber preparedness in both the public and private sector is really a key topic. How about working with managed service providers or managed security service providers? That seems to be something the Secret Service are tweeting a lot about lately. Yeah. Is that something of concern for you, attacking MSPs in New Jersey?
Yeah, that becomes a huge issue for us. And I used the example of election security earlier, and we do use a third-party vendor system to secure a lot of those, the database, the registration database, for example. We have a great relationship with those managed security service providers. We have a fantastic really kind of a broad relationship. We try to make it diverse. We try to make it multifaceted, so we're not relying on just one area or one aspect of it. We have multiple layers. We do work with Secret Service, so what they're talking about is certainly concerns and something we're aware of and working directly together with them. There's a pretty robust task force they just actually announced on fraud that we've already been a part of the predecessor to that. Our agency has been for years. And it's something that we're adapting with them. We're moving forward in the times and the issues they're facing. But yes, we're very concerned with those parameters. So we actually set up as part of our SLAs and as part of our agreements across the board with them to make sure they're meeting what we believe is our bottom line on cyber best practices, most of which, of course, follow them to a T. Some of them don't. We tweak them or as issues arise. One of the challenges that I think I would probably call it our biggest challenge, it comes down to the human factor. And something we've seen before is maybe a contractor, an independent contractor of one of those service providers takes a laptop home at the end of their engagement or maybe during their engagement and doesn't have the proper protocols tied into that. And then all of a sudden somebody gets attacked. You know, they decide to jump into, and this is all hypothetical, wink, wink. But they maybe play a video game that has ties or back channels to some sort of a malicious malware or whatever it may be. That's happened, and that's something that we really focus on, making sure that our providers are A, aware of, and B, have the protections in place so that we're protected on our end as well.
No, thank you. I like that. And in fact, our next presentation by Eric Cron of KnowBe4 is going to touch on a lot of the human factors. So I like that segue for the topics. But Director, we are now out of time, I'm afraid. Please thank Director Jared Maples for a fantastic presentation, and please do reach out. We've also got his Director of Communications on the line. So let's give a virtual round of applause.
Thank you all. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Fallon. Great to see you again. I hope to see you soon.
Yes, hopefully at some of the IPSB things or some other things soon.
Absolutely.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Fantastic. So we've got applause from Ellie. Ira says good data, which is always great. And what I love is, and it was totally unplanned, we can blend the topics on the program so they stitch nicely together. I'm now